It's funny how a single moment can feel like a lifetime. For me, that moment was standing in my own kitchen, a wooden spoon in my hand, listening to my stepmother, Tracy, explain with a sickeningly sweet condescension why I needed to start paying $800 a month in rent. I'd just come off an 8-hour shift at Starbucks, where I'd been berated by a woman named Karen, lowercase k, as we joked, over almond milk. My feet ached, my head throbbed, and all I wanted was to get through making dinner so I could collapse into bed. But Tracy, perched on a stool at the kitchen island like a queen on her throne, had other plans. She was dressed in one of her special dresses. I'm pretty sure it was from Ross, but she carried it like it was Chanel. She had that look on her face, the one she gets right before she delivers some bad news she's secretly thrilled about. "We need to have a serious discussion about your living situation," she began, dabbing non-existent crumbs from her lips with a napkin. I blinked, the fatigue making it hard to process. "My living situation? I've lived here since I was 8. She waved a dismissive hand, her perfectly manicured nails catching the light. "Your father and I have been talking. Now that you're working, it's not fair for you to live here for free while we cover all the bills. It's time you started contributing." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. From upstairs, I could hear my stepbrother, Brandon, yelling obscenities at his video game. From the living room, the tinny sounds of TikTok videos leaked from my stepsister Sierra's phone. The injustice was a physical weight. "What about Brandon and Sierra?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Are they paying rent?" Tracy did this little thing she must have seen on Real Housewives, tilting her head and giving me a pitying smile. "Well, that's different, sweetie. They're my children, and they're still establishing themselves. Brandon is pursuing his content creation career, and Sierra is focusing on her education." I almost laughed aloud. Brandon's content creation career consisted of him playing Fortnite for an audience of 3 people, and Sierra's studies seemed to revolve entirely around perfecting her Instagram aesthetic. Meanwhile, I was working, taking online classes, and acting as the family's live-in chef and maid. But then she laid out her terms. "We think $800 a month is fair. Plus utilities, of course. And we'd still expect you to help out around the house, naturally." Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud crack, but a quiet, definitive click. It was the sound of 12 years of resentment finally reaching its limit. All the times I'd washed Brandon's crusty gym socks, the hours spent picking Sierra's fake eyelashes off the bathroom floor, the passive-aggressive notes about my dishwashing technique, the way Tracy had slowly erased all traces of my mother from this house, it all coalesced into a single, crystal-clear thought: no more. I turned off the burner. Safety first. Even in the midst of a personal revolution, set down the spoon, and looked her dead in her over-Botoxed eyes. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice unervingly steady. "Brandon, who hasn't earned a dime since graduating and spends his days screaming at children online, doesn't pay rent. Sierra, who maxes out her credit cards on shine hauls and has never held a vacuum, doesn't pay rent. But I do." Tracy's face twitched, a strange battle between her frozen muscles and her rising irritation. She launched into a lecture about how I was more established, about family helping family, a bunch of hollow platitudes I'm sure she'd read in a Facebook mom group. That's when I decided it was time to drop the bomb I didn't even know I was carrying until a few weeks prior. "Call everyone to the dining room," I said. "If we're having this discussion, we're having it as a family." She looked momentarily thrown, but her arrogance won out. She probably thought I was going to plead my case, and she'd have an audience for my humiliation. She summoned Brandon, who grumbled about his game, and Sierra, who acted as if getting off the couch was a Herculean task. Once we were all seated around the table, the now-cold pasta sitting between us like a centerpiece of my resentment, Tracy began her presentation. She laid out her rent plan with the smug authority of a CEO announcing layoffs. Brandon smirked, probably mentally spending the imaginary money I'd be contributing. Sierra was already subtly recording the whole thing for her relatable family drama content. And then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I spoke the words that would change everything. "I'm not paying rent," I said, "because this house is mine." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy and loud at the same time. Brandon's fork, laden with spaghetti, froze halfway to his mouth. Sierra's jaw actually dropped. a genuine, unfiltered look of shock on her face for the first time in years. Tracy just stared. Her brain seemed to be buffering, trying and failing to compute what I just said. Then, the laughter started. It was a harsh, disbelieving cackle from Brandon. "Good one, Lucy. You get that from TikTok." Sierra giggled, already thinking of the caption. Tracy tried to join in, but it was a strained, panic sound. "What on earth are you talking about? This is mine and your father's house." I leaned back in my chair, feeling a surge of power I hadn't known I possessed. "Why don't you call Dad and ask him?" Her fingers, tipped with those long acrylic nails, flew across her phone screen. She put it on speakerphone. She always did when she thought she was about to win. My dad, Mark, answered on the third ring, sounding tired. "Hey, Tracy." "Mark," she said, her voice sickly sweet. "Lucy is telling some interesting story about the house being hers." "That's not right, is it?" The pause on the other end of the line was deafening. You could hear the weight of his hesitation. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Well, actually, Tracy, my in-laws put the house in Lucy's name before they passed away." Boom. The color drained from Tracy's face so quickly I thought she might faint. It was a spectacular palette of emotions. Shock, rage, and finally, a sickly shade of green. "What do you mean they put it in her name?" she shrieked. "When were you going to tell me this?" I didn't think it was that important." My father mumbled, his voice small. "Not important," she screamed, standing up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "You didn't think it was important to tell me that your daughter owns our house?" She hung up on him, slamming her phone on the table with a crack I dearly hoped was the screen. Brandon was no longer smirking. The reality was dawning on him that the game room he'd claimed as his own was, in fact, mine. Sierra had stopped recording, her face pale. Tracy was breathing heavily, trying to regain control. "Well," she said, her voice shaking, "this has clearly been a misunderstanding. Of course you don't have to pay rent, Lucy. Let's just forget this ever happened." But I was done forgetting. I was done being the doormat. "Oh, we're not forgetting this," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "In fact, I think it's time we had a serious discussion about your living situation." The fear in her eyes was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. The next morning, as I was about to head downstairs, I heard Tracy's voice in the kitchen. She was on speakerphone with my dad again. "Mark, you have to do something about this," she was whining. "Your daughter is causing problems." "What do you want me to do, Tracy?" he sighed. "What about those out-of-state colleges she applied to? You could convince her to go to one of them. Tell her it would be good for her independence." I froze, my hand on the banister. The sheer audacity of this woman took my breath away. She wasn't just trying to manipulate me, she was actively plotting to ship me out of my own home. My dad, ever the pushover, replied, "I don't know, Tracy." "Think about it, Mark," she cooed, switching to her manipulative honey voice. "She's young. She needs to experience life. And honestly," she paused for dramatic effect, "I'm worried about her mental health. All this anger, it's not healthy." I had to bite my fist to keep from screaming. She was worried about my mental health? Then came the knife to the heart. My dad said, "Maybe you're right. I'll talk to her about moving out for college. It might be better for everyone." My own father, the man I'd made countless cups of coffee for after my mom died, the man I'd quietly tried to take care of, had just agreed to conspire to push me out of the house my own grandparents had left me. I walked into the kitchen, my face a mask of calm. Tracy nearly jumped out of her skin. "Good morning, sweetie," she chirped, as if she hadn't just been trying to exile me. "I made coffee." A lie. She popped a K-cup into the Keurig I had bought. The breakfast table was a festival of tension. Brandon shoveled cereal into his mouth, Sierra photographed her avocado toast, and Tracy pretended to read emails while I knew she was frantically Googling tenant rights. "Hey, Tracy," I said casually. "I was thinking about what you said yesterday about rent." She perked up, thinking I was capitulating. "I think you're right," I continued. "People should pay to live here. I've done the math. Based on market rates, $1,200 per person seems fair. That's $3,600 for you, Brandon and Sierra. Plus utilities, of course. And there will be a security deposit." The chaos was instantaneous. Brandon choked on his frosted flakes. Sierra dropped her toast, avocado side down, onto her pristine white crop top. Tracy looked like she'd been slapped. "You can't be serious," she sputtered. "We're family." "Oh, I'm dead serious," I said. Then I took out my phone. "And since we're family, let's talk about your little plan to ship me off to college." I played the recording of her morning conversation. The color drained from her face once more. It was a glorious sight. After I aired her dirty laundry, things escalated quickly. Tracy screamed about a legal recording. It wasn't, I checked. Threatened to call her lawyer cousin, who handled DUIs, not real estate, and finally resorted to tearfully claiming I was tearing the family apart. What family? The one where I was the unpaid servant? She called my dad again, demanding he come home and fix it. But this time, I'd been proactive. I texted him the recording and explained everything. To my shock, he held firm. "Tracy," he said over speakerphone, "we need to respect that it's her house. Maybe we should start looking for a new place." The look of utter betrayal on Tracy's, Brandon's, and Sierra's faces was a masterpiece. That's when Tracy made her fatal mistake. She got right in my face, her eyes blazing. "Listen here, you little bitch," she hissed. "I don't care whose name is on the deed. This is my house. I've lived here for 12 years, and no spoiled brat is going to kick me out. I will make your life hell." I just smiled. I was still recording. That's when I lawyered up. It was the best decision I ever made. I discovered my grandparents hadn't just put the house in my name, they'd set up an ironclad trust. My lawyer, a brilliant no-nonsense woman, practically cackled when I showed her the texts and played the recordings of Tracy's threats. I served them all with official eviction notices. Tracy tried to refuse the papers, but that's not how the law works. Brandon threw his gaming chair down the stairs in a fit of rage. Sierra had a full-blown meltdown on Instagram Live. Tracy went scorched earth. She called every lawyer in town, but they all told her the same thing. She had no case. She took to Facebook, writing a sob story about her cruel stepdaughter making her family homeless, but it backfired spectacularly when my mom's best friend, Elise, commented with a thread of receipts detailing Tracy's treatment of me over the years. Her country club friends suddenly became very busy. The desperation reached its peak when I caught Tracy on my new security cameras trying to steal my mother's jewelry. I came home from work to find her slipping my mom's antique pearl necklaces into her fake Michael Kors purse. I called the police, filed a report, and showed them the footage. The officer, a no-nonsense woman, was not impressed by Tracy's fake tears. Having that police report was the final nail in the coffin for her eviction case. My dad, in his own passive way, finally grew a spine. He told Tracy that if she didn't leave peacefully, he wouldn't be going with her. It turned out that even his love-blind eyes had been opened by her attempt to steal his deceased wife's belongings. On the day of the move, Tracy tried to stage one last dramatic exit. She called a family meeting and announced they were moving to a beautiful new house in Florida, a blatant lie I knew from the failed GoFundMe I'd seen. In the middle of her speech, the movers I hired arrived. As she was declaring, "This house was beneath me anyway," burly men started walking in with crates. "Ma'am," the head mover said, completely deadpan, "we have strict instructions. Everything gets packed and moved to your storage unit today." She lost it. Completely. It was a symphony of chaos. Tracy screaming, Sierra crying over her ruined TikTok backdrop, Brandon having a panic attack over his gaming PC. I sat on my couch, sipping coffee in my home, and watched the beautiful, satisfying implosion of their entitled world. They tried to steal a few last things on their way out. My grandmother's china, my coffee maker, every towel in the house, but they were small losses. Now the house is quiet, peaceful. Brandon is working at a GameStop. Sierra is commuting to college from a relative's cramped apartment, and Tracy and my dad are living with her sister, who is already complaining about them on Facebook. As for me, I've turned Brandon's old room into a home office. Sierra's room is now my walk-in closet. Tracy's meditation room is my yoga studio. The air no longer smells of cheap perfume and entitlement. My mom's best friend, Elise, has moved into one of the spare rooms. We're rebuilding the home that was almost stolen from me, cooking my mom's old recipes and replacing the things Tracy threw away. Was I harsh? Maybe. But they made their bed in my house, and I finally made them lie in it. Sometimes, the best things, like peace, freedom, and justice, really do come to those who wait. And to those who have the deed,